We're judging the world and saying what sucks. We're reviews versus the world.
But I didn't think that season 14 was really worth mentioning to all of our, podcast listeners because they don't want to hear about that. They want to all pretend that The Simpsons ended with season 10. Like me. I wish that I was in that ignorance, but here I am. With full knowledge of the horrors that exist.
The treehouse of horrors that exist.
And welcome back with that. Woo! Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reviews versus the World. This is a podcast that used to be monthly. Now, life happens and things kind of get in the way. Like, I don't know, a global pandemic that kills thousands. That sort of thing.
Dang it.
But now we're back with a special episode to discuss one of my absolute favorite things in the world, Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight archive. And I'm very, very, very excited for this topic. But, before we actually get into that topic, I want to go ahead and let's talk a little bit about things that we've been into, geeky things. And also, we have two panelists. Kelly, I think that you've been on one episode before.
Yes.
But Megan, you have not. Yes, that's
not
right.
Yet.
And it was actually Emperor's Soul.
Emperor's Soul, yeah.
That's
we just
right.
talked about Elantris as well.
Oh yeah. Because it's in the same universe. But I promise that we talk about things other than Stormlight sometimes. But let's go ahead and Kelly, what geeky things have you been into lately? And also, if you can tell us your Order of Night Radiant.
I am an edge dancer, a few percentages away from Windrunner, like I really wanted to be, because Kaladin's my hero. But edge dancer, which I really like, because I have been told I have healing hands. So I don't know what that really means, other than maybe my wife likes my back massages. I don't know. But yeah, edge dancer, and I love that. And I'd love to glide around, climb up stuff with the power of awesome. And the things that I've been into lately, Genshin Impact is a really fun game and really addicting, and it is a gacha game, and they've already got me. So I've been sneaking here and there. What was that?
Tell us a little bit about it. So, for those that might not be familiar with Genshin Impact, what exactly is it?
It is an anime Breath of the Wild. That's as simply as I could put it. And it's extremely beautiful. Like, they did a super good job actually putting in the elements of Breath of the Wild that are really cool. But at the same time, the story is a whole lot more interesting than Breath of the Wild, mainly because I'm an anime addict anyway. The story quests and the voice acting go along with what you might imagine an anime to do. Similar tropes and similar jokes, and it kind of feels like I'm at home in that aspect.
So there's lots of gratuitous boob jokes then, I would assume.
This is a little bit more closer to kids friendly, thankfully, because my little boys are playing it. But when you're running around as a female character, if you stop suddenly, then yeah, you'll see anime boob. Like the way it moves, it's like unrealistically jiggly, and that's kind of annoying. But
you gotta have jiggle physics in your video.
Come physics, on. Yeah. And pretty much every character in the game is either a waifu or a husbando, as they call them.
Nice.
So maybe I pronounced husbando wrong. Maybe it's husbando. I don't know. That sounds more fancy, but the story's great. So when you get to a certain point, you can't progress anymore because you don't have a high enough adventure rank, and so that kind of forces you to do other things like go explore and get rewarded for that exploration and all kinds of fun stuff. And there's random quests too, like a random event will just pop up because you happen to walk into an area and you'll get ambushed. And it's instead of Breath of the Wild where you're controlling one character, you're actually controlling 4 at once, but you just toggle between them. And as you're fighting, you gain like these special points or elemental charges or whatever, and your other character's special will appear, and you can actually just hit that, and it brings them out, and they do their special, and then you can bring out another person, and there's elemental combinations. So it's really cool to get somebody wet with like a aqua attack, and then go to your freezing guy, and then freeze him, and then go to your electric lady and blast everybody at once, and it supercharges it because water conducts electricity, and so it does more damage, and it's like really cool how you do all that. Apart from Genshin Impact, I am doing Hades.
Yeah.
Hades is one of the coolest Switch games, and it's on Steam as well. But I can't believe how immersive this dialogue is, and it's so funny, and all the characters are so charming. Even the bosses, like Meg is one of my favorite characters, and I just imagine like if Meg and Zagreus, Hades' son, weren't trying to kill each other, they'd totally like go out or something, you know what I mean? Like the way they talk. And it's kind of charming to see the Medusa head or Medusa have a anime style crush on the main character too, and like
and
every
just
time
fly
you say
off.
anything, she just flies off.
It's great. So for those who don't know, Hades is a roguelike, which basically means that it's randomly generated rooms that you go through, and you basically try to go as far as you can into the story and into the levels until you die, and then you start back over from square one. But as you die, you gain new abilities, you gain different currencies that you can spend on things to make each of your runs a little bit better. And it is probably one of, if not the best roguelike that I've ever played.
I would agree with that.
I mean, this, Dead Cells, and then, well, I mean, technically you can consider Slay the Spire to be a roguelike, and I love me some Slay the Spire. That is my jam as well. But Hades is probably my favorite game of the year.
Yeah, the Switch has too many video games on it for me to actually determine if it's my game of the year or not, but it's pretty dang close. I end up just like following the flavor of the week, because Nintendo knows exactly when to send me a YouTube video of a release, and then I buy it, and then I'm stuck for 2 weeks, and me and the boys did the Survivalists, and we loved that. That was a blast. I mean, if you like building things with friends in Minecraft, cool, but why not have your monkeys do it for you on an abandoned island? Like, train the monkey how to do something, it does it for you. You go into a dungeon with 10 monkeys, and you say, hey monkeys, watch this, and you hit a goblin, you have an army of monkeys helping you fight. Like, it is extremely, what's the word? Satisfying. Yes.
And you make them write Shakespeare, though.
Yeah, with all of them with typewriters,
I hear that's the next update.
Oh, good.
Very nice.
That's when I'll buy in.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So we also have Megan. Megan, introduce yourself, a little bit about you, and of course, your Order of Night Radiant and some of the things that you've been into.
All right. My name is Megan, and I am a teacher. I teach junior high Spanish. I do improv when theaters are open, and when I am not able to, I do voice acting. I am a windrunner, but it is closely followed by light weaver, and I really like both of those orders quite a bit. Lift is one of my favorite characters, and her sassy things like calling Dalinar tight butt and everything. That
I forgot about that.
oh, it's the best. It's definitely my favorite. So yeah, as far as geeky stuff lately, I am one of those geeks that either does a reread or a re-listen every time a new book comes out. So this time I've been doing a re-listen because I've got a tiny human at home, and sitting down to actually read doesn't happen so much anymore.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So same thing with a lot of the video games. The only video game I've been playing lately is the Harry Potter version of Pokemon Go. The Wizards Unite.
It's addicting.
It really is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, it's sort of silly, but you know, I sort of like going around town and finding the portkey portmanteaus and fighting against strange enemies, some of which showed up in the books, some of which I think are sort of new for the game. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've never read Harry Potter, but I am reading it with my sons before they go to bed. We spend some time. So.
Oh, it's fantastic. I wasn't going to read it when it first came out. There were a whole bunch of people who were like, "Oh, you like fantasy? You should read this Harry Potter thing." And I was like, "No, I'm too cool to read stuff that's mainstream." And then I had abdominal surgery, and a neighbor brought over the first 3 books. And after a couple of days of just watching TV, and I mean, if you get abdominal surgery, you can't do anything for days. Everything connects through there. And so then I was like, oh, fine, I'll read it. And then I read books 1 through 3 in like a day and a half.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, some of those scenes they're really great for making giggles, but it's painful to laugh when you've just had that surgery too.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of those series that I went back and reread every time a new book came out.
Which it ends up being a lot of rereading. But then again, once we get to book 10 of Stormlight, whoo!
Oh my. But hey, I have prepped and trained for this.
Sanderson.
I mean, I followed Wheel of Time from the time there were about 5 or 6 books only, so.
Man, Wheel of Time. Those are great.
I had to stop at 10. I couldn't do it.
Those are great books, except for book 10, which doesn't need to exist at all. There's nothing that happens
Brady,
in that book.
I'm going to. I just need to finish Rhythm of War first.
Trust me, just go ahead and like read a synopsis.
I already did, but I'm still gonna read it.
It's not worth it.
I'm a completionist, even in books.
It's basically just a bunch of characters going, huh, something feels different. Anyway, that's all that the book is. It is worthless. I love that series, but man, do I hate that book.
Yeah, you need to read the rest. The last book, I spent quite a bit of time in tears and at the beauty of it.
Oh,
nice.
Not ashamed to admit
Good
this.
job, Sanderson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he pulled it all together, and it was a glorious ending.
I'm afraid that the series is going to be like the books in the transparent clothing persuasion, and that like a Game of Thrones situation is going to happen with Wheel of Time on Amazon, and I'll have to I can't do this.
Yeah.
I'm willing to read a lot more than I'm willing to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so as for me, I've been into a few things because that's what I do with my time is I consume way too much media, guys. Way too much. So the first thing that I want to bring up is actually the Jackbox Party Pack 7.
Mm.
So I know, Kelly, you are aware of Jackbox games, right?
Oh,
Megan, have you ever done Jackbox?
I have. I own Jackbox 3.
Oh, Jackbox 3 is probably my favorite.
Quiplash.
Quiplash. It is the game for improvisers who don't have a theater open.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually, so what I've been doing with Jackbox 7 is I have actually been doing Jackbox 7 games over Zoom. So, I have a purchase on my PC, and then we just get a group together, and I just share the screen, and we play it together over Zoom, and it works seamlessly. It is amazing. And Jackbox 7 has some awesome mini games in it. There's one called Talking Points that is totally just an improv game, because it's you're giving a speech about a topic, but the slides for the speech are chosen by an assistant. And so you have to make whatever they put in the slides work, whether it's just like a ridiculous picture of a goat in a bathtub or just a nonsensical phrase. And you have to make it work into your speech. And it's wonderful. And I would say that every mini game in this collection is a winner. It's one of my favorite packs. So I definitely highly recommend that. Also, I have been getting into the world of cloud gaming.
Ooh, fancy schmancy.
So do you guys know what cloud gaming is at all?
You're streaming the game from a different source. So if you had a device that technically couldn't support it with your video graphics card, but you had fast enough internet connection, you could get crazy good frame rates, and it actually feels like you're playing a game on something much more powerful.
Oh yeah,
nice.
And so they've had a few different game streaming platforms out there. There's Stadia from Google. Then there's Microsoft has released xCloud, and they're really kind of ramping that up as well. But I've actually tried a few things here and there, and two kind of different results. But if you know me, the way to get to my heart in gaming and to get me to go, fine, I'll give it a real chance, is you put it on the Switch. As soon as you put it on the Nintendo Switch, I'm there. I will probably purchase it, much to the chagrin of my wife, as I have probably over 300 games purchased on the Switch at this point.
Get about half of that. So we both have problems.
Yeah.
I just desperately want to Switch, but I'm doing it on a teacher's salary, so I haven't gotten one yet.
Gotcha. Yeah. So they released the cloud version of Control on the Switch. And the way that they do it is they let you try it out for 10 minutes to see if your internet's good enough, basically. And after that, you can say, yeah, I like it. I'll pay $40 for this. And then you just have it. And the way that this works it's seamless. It is so nice. I had played Control a little bit on the Xbox One, and I enjoyed my time there. But the reason why I love the Switch as much as I do is just because of the versatility of the system. Being able to play it on my TV and then just go and, my wife wants to watch something, I'll just take the Switch out, undock it, cuddle up with her on the couch, and I'll keep on playing. And it's the only way that I'm able to ever finish any games. And so I have gotten about 15 hours into Control already, and I love it. It works really well. The cloud gaming is awesome, and you can now definitely count me as a believer. Also, I have been watching some TV because that's also what I do. And, I've watched a lot of the spooky shows. I love the Haunting series, are both just awesome. I absolutely love The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor. But, you take a spooky show and then you throw the word Marvel Studios in front of it, and I'm definitely going to check it out. And that is Helstrom on Hulu, which basically follows the two children of Satan on the earth who are basically rebelling against their father, who they just think is a crazy serial killer who has weird abilities, but it's actually a lot deeper than that. And it's okay. I wish that I liked it a lot more than I actually do, but I'd say it's still worth a watch. I am a couple of episodes from the end at this point. But yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Also, I have been reading, or rather listening to, because that's how I read, as we will be talking about. It's we get to our main topic. But I have been listening to a book called We Are Legion, We Are Bob.
I've heard of that. How good is it?
It's pretty clever. It goes right up to the line of, say, like a Ready Player One, where it's like, hey, remember this? Reference, haha, haha. But it doesn't stray too far into that territory. It is a sci-fi novel where basically this guy living in our day and age, major geek, ends up dying. But before he died, he made a deal with a company that will freeze him and bring him back to life. And so then it's 150 years later, he's brought back to life as this AI, basically. And so he has to relearn how to do just everyday tasks as this AI. And then he ends up making copies of himself as he goes out and explores the stars. And so you have this one guy, but he has all these different personalities that he's made have their own names. And so because they all have their own names, they all have their own personalities. So you have one who basically pretends that he's Homer on The Simpsons. You have one who's named Goku. You have one who's named Riker. And they all have their very own distinct personalities, but they're all the same guy, at their heart. And so it's very interesting. It's very cleverly written. It's funny. Like I said, it goes up to that line of being a little bit too referential to things, but without crossing it too much. It doesn't get into that Ready Player One territory.
Who's the narrator on that one?
Oh, let me see. I can find that.
By the way, while you're looking, check out my t-shirt.
Very nice.
Oh, dude.
Check out mine.
Nice.
Final Fantasy sprites. I was going to wear my Unite Them shirt, but it's just a little too big. I don't like how it fits. It's my go-to-bed t-shirt now. So.
Okay, let me see.
I dream about uniting Elokhar and Roshar.
That's beautiful.
But then it turned into a nightmare because nobody wants to listen to me.
You should see me trying to talk about it to my teenagers I teach. A lot of them don't even like to read, so me telling them about my epic fantasy series, with over 1,000 pages per book, that goes real well.
It's narrated by Ray Porter.
Oh, okay. I've listened to some of his.
Yeah, but it's pretty enjoyable. I like it. I would definitely recommend it if you need a break from your epic fantasy. That's a good place to go, for sure. So,
I love me some good sci-fi.
Yeah, and it's great sci-fi. I really enjoy it.
I have to say, when I listened to Ready Player One, I loved sort of like the in-world nod to Will Wheaton, who was also the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
That he kept on showing up, and every time he showed up, you could hear an extra smile in his voice. Thought that was fantastic. He was the elder statesman of the internet.
Oh yeah,
I really liked that book though, and I think that they did a super good job in the movie too, because I feel like if they would have done a direct adaptation, a lot of those trials would have been stale on the screen. I liked the way they changed it. I do. It was entertaining for a movie. All right.
And then the last thing I want to mention is actually I did finally read, because it just released in the last month or so, Battleground, which is the latest book in the Dresden Files series.
Oh, I haven't gotten to that one either.
It's good. It's very good. I don't want to give any spoilers, but this is probably the most epic one yet. And there's a reason why it's called Battleground, because basically the entire book, instead of being your typical, Dresden Files mystery, it's all one giant battle. And he actually released the book that came right before this just a couple of months ago. So he released them just in a 1-2 punch and it's Peace Talks was the last one. And he released them like this just because they are so different and had they been together in one novel, then it would have been much bigger than his novels normally are. Of course, when I read Peace Talks, I didn't realize that Battleground was coming out so soon, and so I got to the end and I was very upset. I was very, very upset because it just didn't make any sense. Like, none of the mysteries were resolved at all. And so it felt good to get a little bit of that conclusion, but it was very good. I enjoyed it.
I actually saw someone who went for Halloween as Harry Dresden.
Awesome.
I did a Halloween socially distanced acting event where we got to interact with people as they drove up in their cars and were handed candy by someone else. And all of us were just playing different characters. And guy pulls up. I'm like, oh, no way. Lifts up a skull. He's like, this is Bob the Skull. I'm like, is that you, Harry?
Awesome.
Yeah, he was happy I recognized him.
You're probably the only one that night.
I probably was.
Mainly because he wasn't seen from he's in a car. So.
Yeah, it's hard to tell just from, chest up.
All right. And with that, I say that it's high time that we get into talking about some characters and talk about the Stormlight Archive. So the way that we're going to do this, the Stormlight Archive is, of course, very, very character driven. And so that's where I want to start. But, we could just go off and rattle off all of the characters and, that would be fun and all. But, this is Reviews versus the World. We're going to be doing something a little bit different. So we are going to actually play a game called Kremling or Axehound. So the way that this game works is I have given all of our panelists a list of characters that we're going to be discussing today. And from this list, I have asked them to choose someone that they would consider to be a Kremling. So this would be someone who maybe has a little bit too much exposure, maybe needs to be backed off a little bit in the story. So this isn't necessarily going to be just, who's awful, because then we'd all just say Moash. But this is this is more, who do we think is maybe a little bit overrated, And then there's the Axehound, who's the exact opposite. Who do we wish had more screen time? Who do we wish had more to them, is maybe a little bit underrated in this series? And so as we go through the characters, I look forward to seeing what you guys chose for your Axehound and your Kremling. And of course, I chose those because Kremlings are talked about a lot, but Axehounds aren't. And Axehounds sound really neat. And I want to know more about them. And stop with the Kremlings already. Just give me the Axehounds. That's how I feel, at least. All right. So let's go ahead and let's start off with the big one. Kaladin Stormblessed. So what are your guys' thoughts on Kaladin as a character?
When he is not talked about anymore, when it's not his point of view anymore, I get a little annoyed because he's the main character. He's, he's really brooding and whatnot, and that can get annoying, but I just don't want to stop.
Oh, definitely agree. The thing with Kaladin, and the thing that Sanderson does so well with this character specifically, is I love just the mental health aspect of Kaladin. His depression and the way that it manifests just really, really hits home for me. And so when I get to his chapters, I really look forward to it because I feel like I have this kinship, but at the same time, there is a little bit of that dread because I understand, and it affects me emotionally. And Kaladin is just such an awesome character, has some of the best moments in the series. In fact, I would say two of the moments that we're going to bring up when we talk about our favorite moments are Kaladin moments for me. And so definitely love Kaladin.
With mine as well.
Oh yeah.
I totally relate to how he's described during the weeping as the weather getting him down. And it's anytime we have weather that's dark for days and days on end, Oh man. Except I don't have a little brother to cheer me up for those.
Yeah. Well, neither does he.
Oh.
I should have probably
Too soon.
mentioned that this is going to be all spoilers. So up through Oathbringer, we're not going to bring up anything that is in the Rhythm of War chapters or in Dawn Shard. I will say that Edge Dancer is also free game, and some maybe light spoilers from the Cosmere at large. But other than that, if you haven't read these books, then you should have stopped listening by now and go read them. And then we'll see you in 6 months. So, all right. So the next character on the docket, Dalinar. Dalinar Kholin. What are your guys' thoughts on Dalinar?
My whole way of looking at him changed after, in the process of reading book 3. And it went from sort of hero worship for this great peacemaker to realizing that there was a reason that everyone was actually afraid of him. And the
rift.
Wrenching. Oh, man.
The rift just... Ooh, it
chokes me up when I
really
listen to it.
Named area because it just puts a rift in your heart. You're just like, I love Dalinar, but when that happened, you're like, what? This is not the Dalinar I know. But what's cool is that you start with a redemption arc already happened for him, and he's a totally changed guy, but he's still ferocious even without the thrill.
Well, and just thematically, Oathbringer, I think, is a very underrated book. And I think it is because of how it treats Dalinar. I mean, the way that it addresses, who he was and who he is now. And, it has some of my favorite quotes, what's the most important step that a man must take? It's not the first step, it's the next step, always the next step. And that is just rings so true with Dalinar, and it hits hard. And then of course, you cannot have my pain, and or just a hypocrite is nothing more than a man who's trying to change. And I think that there are so many lessons from Dalinar that we learned specifically in Oathbringer, that the context of his background gives so much more weight to it.
Yeah, I felt myself be really kind of uncomfortable how I connected with him. You guys probably don't know this about me, but at the age of 32, I was all of a sudden widowed, and not through fault of anyone at all, myself included. It was just a medical thing that all of a sudden happened. But feeling that connection to Dalinar, that he would actually want to have that pain taken away, and seeing what you were become what you are, because I'm a totally different person, and having been widowed is very central to that. Even though I have moved on and remarried and started a family, it's still very central to my life. It's one of those defining events, and I can't even imagine being responsible for that.
And once again, this just goes to how well Sanderson makes sure that his characters are authentic, because he looks for people who have had similar experiences. He looks for people with depression. He looks for people who have been widowed, and he talks to them. He makes sure that the characters work, that they make sense. And, you don't take a single step until that is in place.
I love his deep understanding of all different types of people and how he puts it into his character building. You get some authors out there who are really amazing at building a world, and their characters just kind of like, okay, or they're pretty good at building characters, but their world building is not so interesting. And the fact that Brandon Sanderson it's so amazing at doing both, it's what keeps me coming back to his stuff.
Definitely. All right, so
Dalinar's really, really good at. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
I was just thinking back to when Dalinar puts Kaladin in his place in prison. Sanderson really makes you feel for like what Kaladin's feeling, and like, yeah, he's justified in that because he did. And then Dalinar putting him in his place, it's kind of like, oh, you're right, Dad. Sorry. Like it's you're like feeling what the character's feeling, and then you're like understanding the rebuttal too, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense.
Oh, definitely.
He really writes everything from the point of view of everyone is the hero of their own story. And I heard him talk about that once at a book release that I went to. I mean, that most people are not mustachioed, I am evil. Most people genuinely feel like they're doing the right thing. And the humanity that brings, even characters that you dislike, it makes it uncomfortable, but it also makes it feel more like real life, despite all the magic systems and everything.
Definitely. All right, so it's interesting. We have not, with the two big characters, we haven't had a Kremling or an Axehound yet. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys chose. Next, let's go ahead and let's talk about Shallan. What are your guys' thoughts on Shallan?
Definitely, this is one of mine. She's my Kremling. I would like to see less of her. Not that I dislike her. I really do like her stories, and I like her characters, and I like the whole multiple personality thing. But I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it just goes on a little too long. I would like to see more of her being radiant and less of her being, I can't face my memories, you know.
Yeah, I totally get that. The way that I put Shallan is, I liked her in Way of Kings. I loved her, adored her in Words of Radiance. And I was just kind of upset every time that I had a Shallan chapter in Oathbringer. And I can't quite put my finger on why it is. But I don't know, something about her in Oathbringer just really struck me wrong. Maybe it's the leaning so far into her multiple personalities. But at the same time, I feel like that felt better by the end of the book. But maybe it's just the build up to that didn't really mesh with me somehow. But yeah.
I think maybe her chapters are supposed to feel like they go on a little bit too long in the book, because Brandon Sanderson is so good at building those characters, but someone who hasn't got themselves figured out, who's in the middle of trying to figure this whole thing out, is supposed to be uncomfortable. I think we're supposed to feel awkward and uncomfortable with her. Yeah. And I related to her on a point of view of being someone who grew up very snarky, but also somewhat shy and insecure. That really took me back to a lot of my younger years. I mean, luckily I never had to go through what she did, but being a female in sort of a male-dominated world, I can't imagine being taken to that extreme with everything that happened to her.
I can definitely get that. I can get behind that. I will say, I know that I said that I wasn't going to spoil anything in the preview chapters, but the preview chapters for Shallan in Rhythm of War have been like, that's the Shallan that I wanted all through Oathbringer.
Yeah, coming into your own situation.
Definitely. All right. So let's talk about, we talked about basically the three main characters, but now we need to talk about their spren because their spren are equally as important. So let's start off with Syl. What are your guys' thoughts on Syl?
I love her so much.
Time.
Axehound? Very nice.
Oh my gosh. I want to be in her mind as she's learning things in Way of Kings and in the Words of Radiance. And I want to be in her mind when, and from her point of view, when she's talking about Cal with Cal's mom and just making fun of him.
Oh yeah. Syl is one of my absolute favorites. The one thing that I'm getting a little bit worried about, though, is we're going to have a little bit of a Tinkerbell and Hook moment of unrequited love. And look, now I'm a person and I love you, Kaladin. I'm a little bit nervous for that happening. I'm going to be 100% honest. But other than that, I think that she is just a great character. I love her innocence. In Words of Radiance, when she was going through her, when she was regressing in her sanity, was just heart-wrenching to me. And she's my favorite spren by far.
He writes
Oh,
I can't really add anything more. She just blows my mind. She's hilarious and cute and fun, and I sort of kind of want to be her.
yeah.
This book signing, we had plans. I was gonna be Bridge for Cal, and with my beard and Sadeas spear and all that, and my wife was gonna be Syl.
Nice.
She loves cosplay, and we were gonna go to the book signing this year like that, but thank you, pandemic.
And I was going to be Rock, and I was looking forward to it. But that's what happens.
I would have fallen over in front of Brandon Sanderson, and you would have been like, you only get soft clap.
All right, well, let's move on to the next spren that gets some major screen time, which is Pattern. What are your guys' thoughts on Pattern?
Pattern cracks me up too. No mating.
Yep. Oh yeah, just the way that Pattern views the world is so interesting because he is a logic spren. So it's he's very much trying to understand things from his point of view, which is much different than Syl's childlike point of view that she has. And just seeing the way that he works through things and begins to really understand things is so interesting. I love Pattern.
I love the way that he just views everything as lies or truth.
Mm-hmm.
That something is a good lie. It's sort of like when you dive into a story and it's so good, it's almost delicious, And
I feel so bad that, he just has this feeling that is somewhat true that Shallan hates him. And Shallan hates him because of what he represents in her past. And, that's just heart-wrenching to me.
But she doesn't want to hate him so bad. She likes him too. Like, she doesn't want him to go, and he's like, I need to just experience life and knowledge, even though I know you're gonna betray me and kill me.
Oh yeah,
eventually.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on because we have a lot of characters to get through, guys. Whew, we have so many characters to get through. And let's talk about the Stormfather. What are your guys' thoughts on the Stormfather?
It bugs the crap out of me sometimes.
Yeah, he's too letter of the law.
Me too. I was debating between him and one other for my Kremling, and you know what? I think he's going to get it. He's going to get the Kremling. Just his attitude, the way that he speaks. Michael Kramer does such a great job in the audiobooks doing his voice, but at the same time, every time that I hear it, I'm like, oh, come on. Even though we get
he's back.
we we get such interesting information from him, and the way that he talks, the way that he acts is so different and intriguing. But I don't know. It's like I said, he just kind of bugs me sometimes.
His fatalism about, okay, well, I'm just going to let this happen. When the listeners all finally change, and he's like, okay, whatevs.
Yeah. I will say the biggest positive.
I think that he's really. Go ahead. Sorry.
The biggest positive, and we can see this with all of the bonded spren, is they grow, and they mature, and they become better, and so just like Syl, just like Pattern, the longer that he is bonded to Dalinar, I think we're going to see some major changes in the way that he thinks, the way that he perceives the world, and the way that he understands things because of that bond.
Yeah, in Oathbringer, I have liked. I'm doing my re-listen currently on Oathbringer, but Dalinar's thoughts on how the Stormfather is perceiving him and how that's changing him, I think that's really interesting.
Oh yeah.
Even having to sort of think through, well, I've killed thousands of people too, type of thing. Making the great honor spren examine his ideas of honor.
Definitely.
But he has called Dalinar a son of honor.
Definitely.
Well. Not just Kaladin, but he's at, like, being a splinter of the Almighty. It makes me wonder if he's really a spren, or if he's just the father of them. Like, if he actually might be one of the 16 who took out Adonalsium in the Cosmere, and that he's just one of the splinters. So, like, when he does that whole, like, well, I'm just going to let this happen, like, if he was more closely, like, omniscient, like, and, like, all-knowing, like a god, he wouldn't be so, like, imperfect. And
it's like, spoilers, but it's kind of like Harmony in Mistborn Era 2, where he's kind of restricted in a lot of what he's able to do. So his honor, and then thus the Stormfather, restricted in similar ways.
True.
That's, something to think about. All right. So next up, we have one of my absolute favorite characters. I absolutely love this character, and that is Jasnah. So what are your guys' thoughts on Jasnah?
Ooh, I love her, but I also understand why she annoys people as well. That her single-mindedness is fascinating and irritating at the same time.
Well, I will say, out of every character that we've met so far, other than maybe Odium, she is just the most powerful. Like,
yeah.
The grasp that she has of her abilities is beyond anything else that we've seen from any other character. And seeing her let loose at the end of Oathbringer it's really cool. It's really, really cool.
Still one of my favorite moments, man.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. All right, let's go ahead and let's quickly move on then to Adolin. What are your guys' thoughts on Adolin?
Popular guy at high school, but you really like him.
Yeah. Popular for a reason, not just because he was, like, good at football.
Yeah. Right.
So I have some thoughts on Adolin that I'm going to be bringing up a little bit later on when we talk about theories of what might happen. But Adolin, I like him a lot. But there's also this underlying darkness to him, which, I mean, obviously you see with that moment of, you think that, my father thinks I'm a better man than him. Unfortunately for you, he's wrong. You know, that moment when you see just that darkness that you don't really see outside of that one moment. And so you know that there's some things that are going to be happening with Adolin, I think.
Well, and there's also those moments where people tell him he's just like his father, and they mean it as a compliment. And the way his reaction is described, he's most definitely not taking it as a compliment. I mean, as children are wont to do, of course, but him having been, there when his father was not the person he is now, I think he worries that he might turn into some of those negative aspects that his father was, and that maybe there isn't
Agreed.
redemption for him.
Oh yeah, his anger for sure. I mean, it's not so prevalent now that Sadeas is gone. I've never yelled louder, heck yes, at somebody getting murdered. Like, you deserve it.
It was
All
a
right.
great comeuppance.
Oh yeah. Next we have my Axehound. Ooh. Which is Szeth. Szeth Sun Volano. Oh man. I just got chills, just thinking about him. He's such an interesting character, and he comes from a different culture that we don't really see outside of that one interlude with Risen. But Shinnavar just seems so strange and foreign and so different. And Szeth's place in it, and with that culture, and with him being truthless, I want to know more. Just give me more. I really kind of wish that Oathbringer had stuck with having Szeth be the focus of the story, like was originally planned, because I want more of him. I love him.
I definitely want to see more of that part of the world and their involvement with the honor blades and how their culture grew around that. I think,
and there are many varieties of chicken.
I mean, I don't know if this is like, I don't think this is a spoiler into the next book, but I think you are going to get that. I mean, we haven't seen that yet, but like, I think we are going to get way more information on the honor blades and that area of the world. But as far as Szeth is concerned, the moment the book started in Way of Kings was the moment I was like, I knew I was about to just lose my life to this series. In a good way. Like, I could talk about, like, you could consider me a missionary for Sanderson because of how much I love, like, how much he has redefined epic for me. I like explain in excruciating detail that beginning scene and the powers and the fighting and whatnot when I'm trying to convince somebody to read the book. And they're like, you really like this, don't you? And I'm like, doy. Like, it's the best.
Mm-hmm. I love the sense of his obligation to do things that he's been told, but his self-loathing at the same time. And then when he realizes that he was right all along, like the mental breakdown, it drops the
so good
bottom of my stomach out into a pit for him.
Oh, definitely. Also, quick shout out to Nightblood, because yay for Nightblood.
Gosh. Oh, I love this so much. I cannot wait to see this happen.
I love him so much.
Oh, so good, so good. I actually just finished my reread of Warbreaker this last week. So it was because it had been a while, and so yeah, so getting that context back for Nightblood going into book 4 is, I think, a really good thing for me to have done. So I love it. All right, so next we have Renarin, What are your guys' thoughts on Renarin?
He's my Axehound.
Woo!
I think he's just fascinating. And
his spren is fascinating.
His spren, of course, is very fascinating. But being the second child, the one who's never been enough, and I really feel for him, and I want to see more from him as he grows more into his powers and as he explores having his particular spren.
Definitely.
Yeah, because he even though he's a truth watcher, it's different because it's a void spren. It's but like I feel like his goodness influences that spren.
Yeah.
That moment
It's really interesting.
with him and Jasnah, just
I was so worried it was going to happen.
Well, and one complaint that I have heard lodged about the Stormlight archive that I can kind of see is the familial relationships that you have in Stormlight archive just don't feel like they're as well developed. Like it doesn't feel as strong for just being a family bond. The Colin family doesn't really feel like a family sometimes, which I can kind of get until you get to that moment when Jasnah doesn't kill Renarin, and which is completely against her character, and it's completely against what Renarin knew was going to happen from his visions, and it completely changed everything. And I think that moment, going into the next books is going to be pivotal for everything, because it caused everything to change for Renarin, and Odium can't sense him now. He doesn't know what's going to happen. It just disrupted everything.
And I think that having the stilted family relationship feels completely appropriate for the way their families grew. I mean, the wars that went on for so long, the separation between Dalinar and his family members for a year or more sometimes, and also with his brother. I mean, the strain in the families is very real, and I think that as the books go on, we are going to see more familial connection beyond just the superficial.
So speaking of connections, we are going to talk about the ultimate man of connections next, and that is Wit.
I feel like he's
or
just about
you may know him as Hoid.
I just love the anchor that he is in every book that you read with him in it. When you realize who it is, you're like, yes, I know you.
Well, and
Crazy.
the way that he tells stories, I think, is always so good. No matter the book that you're looking at, he's just fascinating. And obviously, Hoid is a character who is a favorite for Sanderson. He's probably the favorite, and I think part of that is it's a little bit of an analog to himself, because Hoid is a storyteller. He weaves these stories together at the right moments to inspire others. And that's what I feel like Sanderson thinks of himself. He's a storyteller who tells stories at the right moment in the right way to inspire others. And so I love Wit. I love him.
Well, did you guys read his Secret Histories of Mistborn?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Where Hoid is at the well.
Yeah.
Just, I love, and when Hoid is in Wax and Wayne's books, and he's the coach for Shallan, and like he's just everywhere. Like
you, me.
Yes, definitely.
He's
all right.
He makes that scene so funny. When
Okay.
everyone realizes they know him.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to have to keep moving fast to get through all these characters because.
Yeah.
And I am actually going to group a huge group together. And some people might be upset with this, but for the sake of time, we need to consider these people to be the singular unit that they are, and that is Bridge 4. Oh,
Bridge
I love
4.
Bridge 4.
It's not them growing because of Loken's cousins. Bridge 4.
Oh yeah, I mean the Lopen has his cousins that they're just going to keep on showing up because that's just what they do, guys. That's what they do. So I mean I love so many of Bridge 4. You know, I feel like I just have such a strong connection to them. Rock, of course, Lopen, even Zigzil,
Teft. Oh
Teft.
my.
Oh, Teft. Oh, Teft. My heart. Relaine.
Yes.
I love Relaine. I am excited to see where he goes in the future, because that's just such an interesting character to have.
Oh man. And I was thinking about it a lot in the context of everything that's been so crazy this summer. And Relaine's point of view, when everyone's like, oh, but Relaine, you're not like all of them shell heads and stuff like that. And I think back to some of the places I've been where there have been conversations going on toward people who weren't like the rest of the group, and how they were completely othered during that. I feel like this series feels so timely in context of everything that's going on with racial interactions here in the United States and even worldwide. It helped me understand a lot more.
Is consulting with people who are on that side to get it right, like Brady was saying, because you have like the well-intentioned Kaladin doing something and it's just like accidentally being racist, and everybody can relate to that that's been in those shoes. And then you also start to like really understand from their end, oh wow, okay, yeah, I should be approaching that differently.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting the way that Sanderson tackles different issues of mental health, and you know, in general, just Radiants are broken people in some way, and just the way that they're all broken, it's so well realized. And you know, even when people are broken in sort of the same way, like you have societal prejudice is what broke Kaladin, but that's nothing compared to how it's broken Relaine. And especially with, you know, he's lost all of his people. His people are gone. They are no longer, the listeners are no more. And he is truly by himself in a society that views him as the enemy. But at the same time, they know he's part of Bridge 4, so he's not really the enemy, but
he's still viewed with suspicion everywhere he goes.
Exactly. And it's just done so well.
Well, it's how I imagine, putting it in context of our modern society, it's how I imagine a lot of Americans who have an Islamic background must feel. In much of our society, with a lot of the media and how people are portrayed. And I mean, their society doesn't have the same type of media. I mean, how pervasive must that seem to feel so other from the place you call home?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and go to the polar opposite of that conversation that we were just having, and let's talk a little bit about Lift, why don't we? So, what are your guys' thoughts on Lift?
I love her. She makes me so happy. I love how she calls Dalinar tight butt. The logical leap she makes of how she can trust someone or not. You can't trust him. His butt's too tight. Okay. But then when she explains, it's like, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense after all.
Yeah, the not being tainted by the education of the world. She just kind of, orphaned her way through life, and she's so down to earth. Her head's to the ground. It's so like refreshing at the same time.
She's so outside
her quest
of society
to
that it just
pancakes
doesn't.
is-
Yeah.
And her
So I'm going to
need to
admit
listen to
something
everyone.
that will probably make you guys upset. She was almost my.
I think I gotta go right now.
I can't believe you, Brady.
I'm just
Ugh.
Yeah.
Is it because she got her own outrigger?
I'm sorry, guys.
I feel like that was such a good part of the series, though. Like that, her little novella and the darkness being like getting that explained to us. Like Nail was after her, and why he was after her, and why he figured out how he was wrong, trying to take everybody who had Stormlight or who was manifesting powers, but then still deciding to go with Odium. Like, it was just so weird to me, but like also really fascinating to see how that all played out. And
See, I love what you guys are saying. I completely understand it, but she's still a little much. Still just kind of rides that line of she's very divisive for a reason in the Sanderson community.
I think maybe because I work with people that age on a daily basis, I can see some of my students in her. And so it gives me a little bit of affection because she really is trying to make the world a better place. And not just through major events, through listening to people and letting them talk to her about all of the hardship they're going through. It really does remind me of a few of the people who are really central to making their own small corner of the world a better place.
I will say that I do absolutely love the relationship between her, Szeth, and Nightblood. I think that those three together are great. They are wonderful. I love that.
Overly serious, overly funny, and really interesting. Yeah.
I love that the sword liked her, so he just completely ignored what he was doing, what he was supposed to do.
So this next character, I don't want to spend more than 30 seconds on because it's Moash. It's Moash, guys. I hate Moash.
Me too.
Everyone hates Moash. I know that there's this whole contingent of Moash did nothing wrong. Moash is just Kaladin in a different circumstance. No, Moash is Kaladin making very, very, very bad decisions that only horrible people would make because he's a horrible person.
Yeah,
agreed.
I agree with that. I just barely, like 5 minutes before I got on tonight, listened to the part of him killing Elokhar, and then the fact that he had the nerve to do the Bridge 4 salute. I wanted to kick him in the teeth.
Yeah, exactly. You want to attack him.
Like right as he was saying the words, no.
Yes.
And
he was finally coming into his own.
I know.
And I will say, going into Rhythm of War preview chapters, my love for him hasn't changed so far. So.
Oh gosh, he shows up more.
Yeah. All right, but let's go on to a different character now.
He's my Kremling, because I wish he wasn't there for so many things.
Oh yeah. I will admit on my last reread of Oathbringer last month, I actually 100% skipped his viewpoint chapters, and I was so much happier with the book. Like I liked Oathbringer so much more in just skipping his chapters because I know what happened, but I don't need to see him trying to justify who he is, trying to be like, I'm now a hero amongst the Parshendi because look, you guys are treating them wrong. I don't want to hear any of that crap. You're bad. You're bad, and I don't want to hear you anymore.
It sounds similar to the whole narrative of the white savior. The white dude going in and saving the brown people. It's an analog to that.
Definitely.
And that's such an irritating trope. I know he's supposed to be irritating, and that's why he lives that trope.
I like that he does it in a way that we all know that he's garbage, and we all know he's fake AF.
All right, let's move on. I don't want to talk about him anymore. I want to talk about Eshonai.
Eshonai.
I just wish she didn't die.
Me too.
I wanted more of her.
I know.
Well, because she got taken over by that friend, and as soon as it happened, and she was like, "Oh no, we made the wrong choice." This is like you see her identity being stolen, and it's
and her screaming in the back of her head.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Time for a weird theory thing, but I think that Venli's Spren is somehow connected to Eshonai, like it is another form of Eshonai's soul in some way. Like, I know that's kind of weird and out there.
Too.
About Rhythm of War a little bit, buddy.
No, actually, not really, but maybe a little. Not meaning for that to bleed in, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. And while we're at it, let's talk about Venli, because Venli is set up to be such an interesting character, just from going from Eshonai. What are your guys' thoughts on Venli and where she's going to be in the series going forward?
I have a feeling she's going to have a similar type of transformation to Dalinar, going from being hate-filled and wrathful, but then being changed by her surroundings and circumstances.
Well, and as we know, Rhythm of War is essentially her book. Like Oathbringer was Dalinar's book. Here we have this character that, for the majority of the time that we've seen her has been just relegated to the interludes.
Yeah.
And is now, brought to the main stage in such a major way for this series. And I really look forward to seeing what's going to happen with her. Even though part of me kind of wishes that it was Eshonai who survived, but
yeah,
that separation between I want to meet with Dalinar, good Eshonai, and I'm meeting with who I think is Dalinar, bad Eshonai. You're like, man, they were so close to making a good decision, like forming an alliance kind of thing.
So, talking about so close, we already mentioned the moment where this character dies and was so close, but let's talk about Elokhar.
I hated him the first two books. But Daddy, I want to Noompa Loompa now, is the idea I got from first two books.
Well, and
I loved seeing him get beat up so bad by Dalinar. I'm like, I could crush your heart right now if I wanted to. You'd be dead if I wanted you dead. Like, love. And by the way, I'm courting your mother. Deal with it. I'm like, yes.
Your mom. Oh my goodness.
I will say that I absolutely hated him until the end of book 2, when I started to sympathize with him and to see, he suddenly had the kingdom thrust on him when his dad was assassinated. He wasn't expecting it. He has a wife who's just horrible. Before any of the stuff with the Unmade happened, she was horrible. I mean, Jasnah was going to kill her because she was so conniving and evil. She's basically another form of Ele Sadeas. So, and I felt for him. And then, of course, right when he was about to have that redemption arc and he's struck down by Moash, I really felt it because, he's Dalinar's TN. He's Dalinar's team.
That's when it switched for me, when Kaladin realized who he was for Dalinar.
Mm-hmm.
I started changing my mind about him because I saw his sincere desire to be better, and like asking a lowly bridgeman how to be a leader.
So now let's go ahead and let's talk about a character in which our feelings never change because, well, it's Toriel Sadeas.
In book 3, I started to hate him even more when he was like, when Dalinar was like, "Hey, I just promised this archer we're not going to do anything to this village." He'd be like, "Oh, I already picked out a few women, dang it!" And I'm like, I'm so glad he got a knife to the eye.
Well, and it's so interesting to see his parallel with Dalinar and how basically Dalinar grew where Sadeas did not. In fact,
I feel like Sadeas kind of shrank.
Yeah, he kind of regressed even further from where he was, almost to compensate, because he believed in his heart of hearts that the kingdom needed
more ruthlessness,
and where the Blackthorn was no longer the Blackthorn, that had to come from somewhere, and it was going to come from him. So, you know, villains are always interesting to me when they believe that they are doing what is right. And he believed that he was doing what is right, but in just the worst possible way.
Yeah, it makes sense to the reader why he's feeling like that, but we needed somebody to hate really bad.
He nauseates me.
Which we've gotten a few of those. Let's talk about Ammaram.
But he was one that I really felt like he did truly believe he needed to do what he needed to do, because he did, even though he was two-faced, I feel like he was more closely to the honor side. He really believed that he was closer to the honor side, that he was to take that blade.
Yeah, that he was doing the right thing. Yeah.
He's the epitome of the ends justify the means mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And I love how we see all of these little splinter groups, you know, the Sons of Honor, the Ghost Bloods. And that brings us to the diagram. Let's talk about Taravangian.
I love his boons so much. He's an idiot. Or he's like Limitless, like Bradley Cooper from Limitless.
Yeah. Have those children killed.
The reveal at the end of Way of Kings was one of my favorite moments.
Yes.
Of the books, just.
Yeah.
That was a big gasp on my part.
Go back and read all of the death rattles.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. All right, and lastly, let's talk about the Heralds. We don't know too much about them still. Is the interesting thing about the Heralds. What do you guys think?
I feel like if only Edge Dancers or anybody else with the power of regrowth could somehow heal the mind, we could get more out of Telanin. Yeah.
Just 1 second. I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, but oh gosh, I like the Desolation's coming, and we need to train you. We need to do this, and then his mind resets like a short-term memory, and he goes through it again, and hashes it again, and hashes it again. And I'm like, so far, regrowth only heals the physical nature, but if you could just heal the mind. But here's the thing: if you're gonna suffer for 4 millennia for 9 other dudes that left you in the dust, gosh, no wonder you're shattered.
Of course. I mean, there's no way he wouldn't have been, especially since he was the only one that never broke before. And then finally breaking, that would break your mind more.
Yeah.
I mean, when you finally give in to something that...
The pictures of him, I don't know if you've seen the artwork for him when he stumbles into that keep with just a loincloth and the huge sword. I don't know if you've seen that painting, but
he buff.
he looks 12 feet. He looks like Hulk with just tan skin and really long brown hair and just like wide-eyed and confused. It's super cool.
Definitely.
Don't
So
know enough about the rest of them now.
Now that we've talked about all of these characters, one thing that we want to see always in these books is we want to see them realize on the screen, because not everybody can get to a tome that's boom and not be intimidated out of it, and we want everyone to enjoy these stories. So let's do a little bit of fan casting, why don't we?
Mm-hmm.
I love fan casting.
Will you enable share screen so I can share mine at a certain time?
Oh yes, I can. But first, I want to show you guys mine.
Yes.
All right. So just one moment. Let me get things ready because I don't want any spoilers as I go into this. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you will see the video version. If not, then I'll try to, I'll of course say who I'm thinking. But let me go ahead and share the screen. Okay, there we go. And let's go into the presentation. Okay. All right, so first, as Kaladin, Dev Patel, who, if you don't know who Dev Patel is, he's actually a great actor. He starred in Slumdog Millionaire. He also starred in, there was a recent David Copperfield movie that he was actually brilliant and he was so good. And he was also in The Last Airbender playing Zuko, but we won't hold him to that. But he is actually he's very much an up and coming actor who I think would nail Kaladin. Like he has the look, he can pull it off, and he has the acting chops. So I definitely like Dev Patel as Kaladin. Next, I have Cliff Curtis as Dalinar. So if you don't know who Cliff Curtis is, he's actually an amazing actor. He's Maori, which, we need more Maori people in Hollywood in general, because, between Cliff Curtis and Taika Waititi, they get it done. But he is an amazing actor. He's been in a lot of shows.
I can see him in Shard Plate for sure.
He does a lot of background characters and things. He stars in Fear the Walking Dead. He's in Push, which I think is an underrated movie.
I like that one too. Yeah.
He's in a ton of movies that you wouldn't. He's someone that you see him and you recognize him, and he is a great actor. And I think that he could pull off a great Dalinar. He's the right age, in his mid-50s. He's primed for it. So next, as Shallan, I don't think that you can find anyone better than Jane Levy, who, if you don't know who Jane Levy is, she's from Suburgatory. She's from Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. She is an amazing actress who just gets better and better. And I love her. And she has the snark that could really be pulled off with Shallan. Plus, the red hair, of course, also helps. But I think that Jane Levy would be perfect as Shallan. Justin Min as Adolin. So Justin Min has not actually been in many things, but you would probably know him from The Umbrella Academy, where he plays Ben, who is the brother in the family who actually died, but is now a ghost haunting Klaus. But Justin Min, he really definitely has that look, that Southeastern Asian look that you would expect from a member of the Colin household. But he's also a really good actor. He's funny. He can pull off the, I have shat myself in Shard Plate line perfectly. He would be perfect, I think, as Adolin. Hannah Simone as Jasnah.
Okay.
So you would probably know Hannah Simone from her character in New Girl. Is probably where most people would know her, but she can pull off the attitude of Jasnah perfectly, and she has the look. She's about the right age, mid-30s, and I think that she would be perfect as Jasnah. Ming-Na Wen as Navani.
Ooh.
So
I like that one.
Yes.
So as soon as I started thinking about Ming-Na Wen, now of course Ming-Na Wen from probably a few different things. She was the original voice of Mulan, but more importantly, she is Agent May on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Once again, she is about the right age for Navani, and she can pull off just that stoic nature that Navani has perfectly. So I love Ming-Na Wen as Navani. Paul Bettany as Wit.
This
I could see that. Yeah.
I like it.
And this is because he's the right age. He would have the right sass. But come on, it's because of Knight's Tale.
Yes, it is.
It's totally because of Knight's Tale, because of Chaucer.
That's convincing me right there.
Yeah.
I think that he would be perfect, and he would be one who would be up for being in just a Cosmere series of films too. So Anthony Kerrigan as Szeth. Anthony Kerrigan is an amazing actor. If you have seen Barry on HBO, he plays NoHo Hank and is absolutely wonderful on that. He also plays Victor Zsasz on Gotham. He has a very distinct look. He has alopecia, so he's bald. He's pale. He's known for playing assassins and murderers. He's perfect, in my opinion. And plus, I don't know, because he does comedy so well, and so I'd miss that in Szeth, but I still think he could pull it off. Rahul Kohli as Elokhar. Rahul Kohli, if you don't know, he's actually one of my favorite actors, comedians. He's very funny. He is in iZombie. He's also in The Haunting of Bly Manor, where he plays Owen. And I just think he'd pull off a really, really good and convincing Elokhar. And then finally, we have a pile of dog crap playing Moash. So.
There you go.
So there we go. All right. And before I have you guys go, I do want to just pull out John Crowder wanted to be part of tonight's podcast, but he ended up having to drop out. But before he did want to point out that he would absolutely love. Let me just make sure that he didn't send me another one as well. But he would absolutely love Ken Watanabe as Dalinar, which I love the crap out of Ken Watanabe. He's one of my favorite actors in Hollywood.
Who he is.
You would
incidentally, that's who I put.
you would know him the second that you see him. He's in so many movies. Inception,
As Dalinar?
The Last Samurai, the new Godzilla films, as Dalinar. I think that he might be a little old at this point, but at the same time, he has that gravitas to him that he would be able to just really, really nail it. Anyway, so Megan.
I am not ready to present because I didn't realize I'd need to have pictures, but I'm putting that together because I've got my list, but yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So skip me, come back to me.
Okay, Kelly.
All right. Let's share my screen. All right. So Raphael, Justin, what is his name? Justin Baldoni, from Jane the Virgin. In the times where he was super emotional and crying and in pain and depressed and whatnot, I feel like he really exemplified that. They could nail that part of Kaladin. And I found a long-haired picture of him, and I was like, he would look like a good Kaladin, like especially in Bridge 4. After starting to eat a little more and getting muscular, like he's good. I feel like he's the right height, I think.
As a side note, everybody should watch Shane the Virgin. It's one of the best shows ever created.
Yeah, it's so fun.
So good.
Here's my Dalinar.
Oh.
Because he could be really good evil Dalinar and really good redeemed Dalinar.
I like it.
Yeah. This is my Shallan, Karen Gillan.
I thought about her for a minute.
I
feel
love
like
Karen
she'd
Gillan.
make an awesome
I love her.
Veil version of Shallan. In her white coat, the brimmed hat, and like the dark eyes. Like,
Well,
she
and
has that attitude really well.
And you know that she can pull off the sass if you've ever watched Doctor Who, where she's Amy Pond and is so amazing.
She also has this like sitcom where she's like in an office she's a secretary. I can't remember the show, but
oh yeah, that show that lasted like one season.
Yeah, but it was still pretty funny. But
yeah
like I do really like her, and she's one of my Hollywood crushes because of Jumanji 2. Dakota Fanning. Guess who I'm choosing for Dakota Fanning?
Lift?
Syl.
Oh, that's perfect. I like that.
Yeah. Mainly because growing up, she was, a little girl in a lot of like spunky movies. Like, so I feel like that translates for me. Kate Redding, I want to be the voice of Pattern.
Oh man, she's so great.
Awesome.
Her humming.
I want her to be in, like, because they were in the audiobooks, I just want them to be in the series in some way. And her husband, I want to be the Stormfather in this
Michael
series.
Redding, definitely.
Yes. Child of honor. I just love it. My Jasnah is actually Kristen Crick.
Ah, she could pull it off.
I like the look mostly, because most of her acting is like a really sweet girl or whatever, but like I've never seen her in a serious role, like I'm better than you kind of girl role. So,
right.
But I don't doubt she could do it, but I think she has a really good Jasnah look. And here's my Adolin. I forget his name. Adam something. But I always picture Adolin as like, because he always gets a new girlfriend, he's somewhat of a heartthrob, not just because of who he is, but like this guy is in a ton of rom-coms. But he's also super muscular, and I could see him like halfway broken plate during that duel, just like totally hammered, and it being super cool. And it'd be interesting to see blonde with black tips and blue eyes on that guy. And then here's my Szeth.
Michael Rosenbaum.
Yeah. I feel like he's tall enough. Like, because somebody did really amazing art work of Szeth walking with his shard blade to the side and his hand covering his face because he was so sad about what he was doing. And that body type in that art really reminded me of him. He's kind of lanky, taller. But yeah. That's all I was able to get through before.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, Megan, what do you got for us?
Okay. I didn't make a presentation for the whole thing, but I can tell you who my other ones are. All right. Slideshow. And how do I
go to share screen?
Okay. Switching. Share screen. Okay. Here we are. So, Kaladin.
Okay.
I love Adam Driver. I love how he broods, and I think that they can make him look young enough for most of it because he is he's supposed to be an old soul. So yeah, I liked him for Kaladin. And like I said, Ken Watanabe for Dalinar. I like he's got a build like Dalinar is sort of described, and they can always play that up. But yeah, that's who I was picturing. Shallan, Bonnie Wright.
Huh.
I totally see child Shallan in this girl right here.
And I mean, she's in her 20s, so she could play down the age, she could play up the age still. I think she would do great at it. She was Ginny Weasley in the Potter movies. And so she's who I thought of initially.
I love it.
Shallan. Yeah,
I love it.
I liked her. And going along with the Harry Potter pattern, Ivana Lynch as Syl.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, she was.
Her little smirk actually works really well for me.
Yeah. I chose the picture that I thought was like most Sylphrena like, and she was Luna Lovegood, also from the Harry Potter movies. I like that she can be innocent, but also have that kind of fun smirk to her, and it would be. She gets tired of, being Luna Lovegood for people. I think she stopped doing cons because of that. But I think this would be an amazing role for her. Pattern, Alan Tudyk.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Also because of Knight's Tale.
I love him in every single thing I've seen, including when I've gotten to see him in person. And I think he would be hilarious as Pattern. I mean, if we can't get Kate Redding to be Pattern's voice, even if we can, maybe even Alan Tudyk could do the motion capture or whatever. But yeah, I love him. And I skipped the Stormfather because I couldn't think of anyone. But for Jasnah, I was thinking Marina Baccarin.
That's a very popular one, and I love Marina Baccarin.
Yeah, I've loved her again in everything I've seen her in. She's such an incredibly talented actor. And
Firefly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking of over too soon. Adolin. Okay, this was one I was looking up different actors, and because they're saying that it's supposed to look that our Alethi are supposed to look sort of like somewhere in between East Asian and Middle Eastern. I was just looking through different actors, and I really liked this fellow. His name's Charles Melton. He's got that nice square jawline, good looking, and wit. Always talks about him having an angular face.
I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very true.
So
and
yeah,
that's off the storytelling so well.
Oh yeah. And I could listen to him read the phone book, so I loved listening to him with the stories. I didn't add any slides for others, but I was looking for Taravangian, Ian McKellen.
I like it.
He's got that gravitas. For Odium, Jeff Bridges. For Rock, Christopher Hivju. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was the redheaded guy on Game of Thrones that had all the memes made about him.
Oh my gosh, heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's who I picture in my head when I'm reading Rock. And for Sigzil, I saw someone suggest the idea of Don Cheadle, and I like that idea.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Those are the ones that...
Relaine, I want Idris Elba.
Ooh.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So there we go.
All right. So we are running out of time. We have gone so long, guys. We are almost at 2 hours here.
Doesn't feel like it.
I know, because you just start talking about Stormlight and you just keep going. So just quickly, let's go ahead and let's run down some favorite moments. Just very brief. And I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of repeats here. So let me just start with probably my all-time favorite moment in any novel that I have ever read, and that is "Honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do." Like I just got chills just saying that and thinking about it. I got chills again. That arena scene is just beyond outstanding, and the lead up to it with no one being willing to go in and help Adolin and just being willing to watch him and Renarin die until Kaladin, this lowly bridgeman who would have no place in this arena, basically is willing to sacrifice himself. And it's such a powerful moment for me.
It's tainted so bad though with Kaladin's idiocy at the end. Oh, I love that scene so much, but I cringe when he's like, "I am my face palm."
Yeah.
There's so many favorite scenes. One of my favorites is it's kind of like it's like an entire section, but it's Kaladin and Shallan in the chasm, and him fighting that chasm fiend, and then him having his leg torn apart, and Shallan having to take that sword and carve out like handholds and footholds, and him and her getting into that thing that she painstakingly took rubble out with her hand, and resummoning pattern and cutting out more, and just so that they can fit in there. And then, like, as I was reading this, and as the waters came in, and it came up just a little bit too much, and they were going to be pulled out of that little section he carved out, I'm reading the book, and I grabbed like the sides of the wall, thinking I'm like coming, like I was so there, like it, like I think that was one of the moments where I was reading until like 4 a.m. because I just was so in it. And then the scene from Oathbringer that he actually read at a reading is one of my favorite moments for Dalinar's history. And he's like, "Hey, have you seen my steak knife?" They're like, "No, we don't understand this." He walks out into a freaking ice storm, and they think that like
sidesteps a boulder.
Yeah. He's knocking on the door, and they're worried. Well, he's knocking on the door. They don't even know if it's human or not. They're scared out of their minds. And they open it up, and they're like, "No, we don't. Isn't that your knife, sir?" And he's like, "Oh, okay." And so they already had it on me. And walks back, and some assassin comes, and he just takes him out, and he wipes it off and starts cutting the steak. And I'm just like, he's the biggest BA I've ever heard of. Like,
oh, it's so good.
Oh man, I love that scene. I was also thinking about that scene in the chasm where they're just huddled in there, and they've shared a giant secret. But also the scene where Shallan has realized that her going around passing out food to everyone did not end up being good.
That
she thought she was helping everyone, and everyone involved has been hurt and victimized because she thought she was going to go in and be so, big woman in town. And then she has her complete breakdown, and then she's there with Wit. And he goes back over that story of the girl who looked up and takes her beyond the ending that she told to Pattern about, it doesn't have any meaning, to help her see that it does have meaning, that there is growth even in pain, and helps her to progress into the person that hopefully I'm going to see in the next book, where she's more grounded and has figured herself out better.
So the next moment I want to call out is Dalinar getting thrown into the air by Szeth. Szeth turning around, and then Dalinar floats back down, and then Kaladin doing his superhero landing, and the skies are mine. Yep, exactly, superhero landing.
The ripples in the shattered plane that he makes with his fist.
The Words of Radiance is my favorite book of all time, just full stop. I have to say. It is unmatched in my mind, and it's because of all these little moments. And the last moment that I did want to call out is Oathbringer. You cannot have my pain. Just, it's so powerful because
what?
Because
and then as he puts all the rounds together,
because obviously I don't have as dark of a background as Dalinar, but there are still things that I regret, things that I have done that have caused pain to myself and others that I regret highly, but they also have forged me into what I am today. And it just resonated so hard for me that you cannot take this from me. I need this. This is part of what has made me who I am. So powerful.
Oh yeah. I love that. And very close to that scene is another one of my favorites, and that's when Adolin is thinking there's a thunderclap around the corner due to all of the enemies that are being thrown out from around the corner, and out walks Jasnah. It was her. And she was actually scared in her mind about how easy it was to access Shadesmar. It was like lifting a finger. She was scared of her own power. When Dalinar had brought all of the realms right that close to each other. Like, that was a really cool moment for me.
Oh, and also I would be remiss if I did not call out Dalinar giving away Oathbringer for the Bridgeman.
Oh my gosh.
And also,
Ammaram making Ammaram say sorry to Kaladin. When Kaladin was like, "Oh, here he comes. He's gonna make me say sorry to Ammaram," and it was the other way around. And
yes.
And also Kaladin turning Bridge 4 back around, being like, "We see freedom, but guys, we can't. We have to go back." Oh, it's so good.
You're naming all my favorite moments, guys.
As I was rereading it, like, I'm like cleaning the house one day. My wife was gone the entire day, and it was just 6 hours straight of reading. And that's where one of my moments was when they were like, "We have to go back." And I remember just stopping, just being like with my hands on the table, like chills, just like as he jumps over that chasm and breathes in the stormlight, and it just starts taking out all the Parshendi and cutting a line to Dalinar, just like, and then everybody getting pumped about it, like, wait a minute, is that who I think it is, or like, is an opening? There's an opening, everybody charge! And it was like that's the epicness that Sanderson, I feel like he does better than almost any writer that I've ever read. He's so good at epic, And my question, we actually have a book signing that he's going to be doing, or like his book release on November 17th or something. Or I'm taking time off from my second job so that I can be on that Zoom meeting / call thing that he's going to do. And if you signed up and pre-ordered the book early enough, you get to ask a question. And people were telling me after they signed up, they didn't get to fill in the question. But I asked them the question, what would you rather have for Stormlight, an anime or live action? Because I love either, but I feel like we could get more production faster with an anime. And it'd be less costly.
It lends itself to that.
Yeah. But anyway. What did you ask him, Brady?
Okay. Actually, I did not ask a question, but I really should have. But I feel like I don't want anything spoiled at this point. So why ask a question that will spoil something that will surprise me later on?
Oh, he won't give spoiler anyway.
Yeah, read and find out. That's his mantra.
He's so good with that.
All right. Well, you know what? Speaking of reading and finding out, you know, first we have to come up with our theories to see if those theories are going to be correct. So let's go over, you know, just to end this out tonight, what are some theories that you guys have about what's going to happen in the future of this series?
I have one, and it's about Adolin and his blade. Syl died when he chose the wrong thing. She went back to the Stormfather, and she broke through again when Kaladin made the right choices. But she wasn't a Shardblade yet when she died. I feel like those who portrayed their Spren and their Spren died can still come back and are still technically alive in some way. They're still sentient. Otherwise, Adolin's blade inside Shadesmar wouldn't have defended him.
I like that.
It has thought.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and he talks to the blade like it's a person constantly. So he's forged a bond with this blade that was bonded to somebody else. And I feel like he's going to somehow revive through his relationship with that blade. He's going to become a knight of some order. And instead of getting a Spren, that particular one is just going to come back to life. Either through some kind of Spren-shaped regrowth. And yeah, I really think that's going to happen.
So I like that, but I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction. As I'm going to say he is going to try and try and try to revive the blade. He's not going to be able to. It's going to drive him mad and drive him to become Odium's champion.
Mm.
Interesting.
Gah.
Because he you know,
I hate it.
Lost his anger to the point where it got murder. But I hate that. I hate it, but it's good.
Yeah.
All right. Any other theories, Megan?
Theory-wise, Venli, we're going to see her become a Radiant, and it's going to be way cool because it will be something that can be a uniting factor for all of the listeners, singers that don't want to be part of Odium's plans. No?
That's really good. That's
I love the idea.
That's too.
Okay. Here's my next theory. Follow me for this one. Book 5 of Stormlight ends. Odium is defeated and falls as a shard plate to the ground. Walking up to pick it up and take over the mantle, Szeth style, is Dalinar. Dalinar becomes Odium or passion.
He becomes Odium and Almighty, like kind of like how Szeth is.
Odium and honor. That could be a possibility.
Huh.
That could definitely be a possibility because those are the two sides to Dalinar, are his passion and his honor. So that could definitely be a possibility, but I'm thinking, and then with a time jump in between the two arcs, you know, maybe he doesn't handle it so well and maybe he goes bad.
Mm.
You know, what if Kaladin becomes the champion? This is...
They all have such light and darkness in them.
Yeah, they do. They do. I really hope it's not someone I love a lot, which means it's going to be.
So maybe Moash. That's like the only one that you'd be okay with.
It's just too easy to kill.
Mm.
I don't feel like he's. I mean, he talked up in book 1 that he was like, you know, he catched onto the spear really good, but like I don't think that, you know,
Awesome.
I really don't want Adolin to be the champion. Brady, you better.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you guys, but I just have that feeling. I mean, Sanderson has even said that it would be very, 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 very difficult for anyone but the original Radiant to revive a dead blade. So I think he's going to try and he's going to fail. And
he said that. I guess he's on Reddit a lot answering people's questions.
Anyway, so to just to wrap up this conversation, I think that we would all recommend the Stormlight Archives. Is that correct? Am I following the right wavelength here?
The entire Cosmere. If you haven't read it, we've just spoiled the entire thing for you, but you'll love it anyway because we said so.
You will, because none of this is really going to make sense to you because a lot of it we're just kind of saying little sections of it. But this is not a recommendation. This is you read this or you will not have a good life.
This is a proselyte. Yeah, this is proselyting here.
I promise you that if you read this book...
Can we talk to you about your Lord and Savior, Dalinar Kholin?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go and read the Stormlight Archives. Thanks, guys, for coming on. It was awesome having this discussion. I've wanted to geek out over Stormlight for a long time, and this just felt right.
Good way to spend an evening.
Thanks for inviting us. Oh, yeah.
All right, and have a great night, guys.
Yeah. Woo!